You better clap now, because when I get done, you might not applaud. I just want to say for the new turners, I've never watched, well, I've maybe watched one or two of the videos back there, but I've learned everything from this group out here. I come to most of the meetings, and this is where I do my learning. I'm all good teachers. And what I'm going to do today is Mick is responsible for me choosing to do this, because when I was just first starting, I was bashful, and I looked at all these beautiful pieces and I wanted to quit. And Mick brought one of these things, and I looked at it, and I put my finger inside, and it was all nice and smooth. And I thought, wow, I'll never be able to do that. And I have never been able to do this. And I thought, at the time, I didn't ask him how he did it or anything, because I didn't want to embarrass myself and act really stupid. So I got home and I got thinking about it, and I thought, if he ever brings one, I'm going to check it out a little better. And I discovered that he did it in 2 pieces. So I thought, I'm going to try that. So I went home, and that same day, I found a piece of wood, and you all have made boxes. And basically, this is box making, only you glue the lid on. And so I went home, and I did this. And if you can ever find a piece of wood where the grain is fairly big, and you can cut it with a fine parting tool, you can just about fake anybody out. Now, this one was my first one, and I didn't line the grooves up because my parting tool was too wide. So what I did is I went ahead and a neighbor come over, and they were doing some directional drilling in our area at the time, and he said, how did you do that? And I said, I invented this tool to go in there and carve all that out, and then blow it out. And he looked at it, and he didn't think. And finally I got embarrassed, so I told him what I did. But when I glued it together, there was some voids. So I just took a wire and burned a couple of them. Now, it don't have any use, it's just junk, that's why I still have it, nobody bought it. My wife has told our daughters when they're at work and they have a problem, and you can't influence it or whatever, she says, just put it in your God box and let him worry about it. And so my one daughter was looking at one of these one day, and she said, well, what do you do with it? And I said, I don't know. Make it a God box, I guess. And she said, I could put a lot of them in there and I could never get them out. And I said, that's all right. But anyway, this is just, you can kind of look at that. She's also the daughter that caused poor Jim to drive back and get his camera. She said, she looks at the website once in a while and sees what I've been turning. Well, I haven't turned anything recently, so she said, how come you're not turning anything? And I says, well, I'm going to the next meeting. And she said, some guy that did a demonstration was on YouTube. And that was Mick, last meeting. And she's seen that. And she says, that was kind of interesting. And I said, well, maybe you'll get to see me. I'm going to demonstrate. So I talked to Jim, and he forgot. You wouldn't have had to do that. Okay. I cheat. Now this wood that I have is a piece of wood, and I'm going to leave with somebody that wants a couple of these. This comes from Mark Ghost. The day we were up there and had this, take what wood you want. I don't know what it was. Somebody said it was cherry at the time and everything. I think it's elm, probably. So I hadn't turned for a while, so to get ready for this, I grabbed it. It has to be really dry. The drier the better. I got this wood, and I cut some pieces, and I did this one just to see if I could still do it. And if you want to get real make people real inquisitive, instead of putting the hole right on the edge, put it over here somewhere, and then they'll really wonder what the heck going on. So I turn this piece, and I build a hole in here, but right where the pith was, it popped out. So you can pass that around and see. This is the same kind of wood, and if you all want to tell me what it is, I think it might be yeah. And one more thing, most of you guys figured this out, that this wasn't hollowed out that far back into the corner, the ones that you have turned. But if you do a really good job and you line up the thing, you can fool a lot of people. A wood turner, every time they pick up something, first thing they do is look at the bottom. And the next thing they do is they put their fingers. So what you want to do is you want to make the hole big enough so that they get their finger in. Mick's got big fingers. Yeah, use a little finger. But what the deal is they get their finger in there, and it's all smooth. I actually sanded it and put a finish on the inside.
I picked it up, and I thought you had hollowed it.
Yeah, did you really?
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't look for it close.
I did. Well, you have to look at it again. How did you know that these are two pieces glued together? All right, so it's pretty simple, and I'm usually very careful about safety, and I didn't bring any safety glasses, but this is pretty easy. I already cheated and got started here, so we could get through this. And anyway, I wear a glove normally because when I first started turning, I got a sliver. And so I usually use one, if you're turning something, a lot of stuff real fast, the shavings are hot, very hot. And the shield, I wear a shield all the time, and that's not going to protect me if something flies off, particularly a big piece, but it protects your eyes, and that's basically what I wear eye protection for. So this will do me here today. And but I have to have these. Mick and I can't see without our wall rings. So. Anyway, what I did is I just took it, found the center line, and now I'll shape it. What am I looking for? Oh, here's another couple pieces I'll hand out. These are old scraps that I did just from and when I did some coloring, dyeing. This is a piece, this was paint, silver paint, and I tried to dye in here. But these are just pieces of wood I got from the neighbors, and I did them that way. Okay.
So why does it have to be really dry wood?
Well, I think so it don't shrink, twist, because after you glue it, the glue joint may.
Yes.
I've never tried it. So the first thing I'm going to do, or attempt to do, is just shape this however I want. And the sharper you can get the edges, like some of Mick's stuff is real thin, the more interesting it is, and it has no useful other than just conversation piece.
Let's go and look at it.
Yeah, I'm usually, I guess sometimes you get it too, I've already cracked now if you play bridge, and you're I don't know how many of you play bridge, but when you lose your transportation, you got some good tricks on the other board and you can't get there. Well, once in a while when you do this or make boxes, that happens because you don't have anything to hook it onto. So what I do when I get this almost shaped, I'm going to cut another tenon on this side, and I'll have a tenon on both sides. I'll part it off, hollow it out, glue it back together. And so what I'm going to do is just do the. Somebody drove over here 2.5 hours and said he come just to see me how to hollow because he wanted to get in there, and I said I cheat. And he says, well then I should teach him how to cheat. So I do. And the speed, I just go whatever feels comfortable. Until I got here, I didn't know what the bevel was. You guys taught me what a bevel was. I didn't know. I thought this was pretty sharp. I use it as a scraper, but this is very dry wood. Basically trying to plane out, scrape back, it doesn't make any difference however you get there. Everybody has a favorite tool. And I said I'm very careful and safe, and I really should shut that off. You started to shut it off because you never know what's going to happen. And it's just safety.
What was that tool you did for fingernail guns, that taste name?
Yeah.
Bow gouge.
Bowl gouge. I never use this, but I brought it this time because I've already goofed it up.
Hey, Bob,
For my kids.
the camera's ahead of you there that you're
Oh.
seeing this big screen. There you go.
So now, yeah, I'll finish. I can cut that tenon with almost anything, but a lot of times you just use I know most of you just will use some type of a gouge, or just use a parting tool a lot of times to get that. I got this a little bit little here for my Some of the professionals, when they turn here, they turn at a high rate of speed and they have a little, very thin little tenon. And, I can do that, but, I prefer to get a little bit bigger one in case it would happen to fly off. Then somewhere along in this process, you got to figure out what is going to be the top and the bottom. And I do that after I see how I've screwed it up along the way, because I'll get a tenon on both sides, and then I'll take this down, and it looks like, being this is so thick now, this might have to be the top, but we'll see. And you gotta leave a little bit, you know, for the chuck the back on here.
In your bag.
Thank you. What kind of wood do you think this is? Kips? That one I passed around?
Would you? Sure.
Does it look like elm maybe?
Could be. Color brought it around. The grain doesn't look that. Elm usually has kind of twisted grain to it.
Now the other thing that I've done, and I don't know that it's that important, I think it is, the chuck clamps onto your tenon, but the friction that pushes it back against it, that friction against that little back, has as much to do with holding it as anything. So I always put the spool pressure on it. Maggie must play bridge because she knows what losing transportation is.
Often needed it.
I like to cheat. I guess, not at the bridge. But so I can show you how kind of front to the end is. I already did another one here, and I glued it up. So once I get this shaped and split and hauled out, then I'll go ahead and I'll show you how I do the bottom here. Probably got that too thin already, so it's going to get little. And the reason is because I got a thick. I've got a thinner one. My other problem is I've sharpened that so many times that it's getting pretty short. getting hot, seeing it's tearing loose. Yeah, I think this one's gonna be a littler one. That's all right. Most people don't do that, but I do it quite often. See, that wood is not doing good. We're gonna have a real little one. Anyway, they're fun to do. Might salvage it, but I don't know.
So what are you uncomfortable with?
Well, it chipped out. See this? It was just all chipped out.
Okay.
See how dry and. But that was the only piece of wood I picked up from Mark, and I kind of wanted to do a little something with it. And
You know what? If you just make your contacting surface a tiny bit wider, then glue it together and then shape that.
yeah, I can do that, but I have to get it parted. So yeah, and I do that a lot. Yeah, I do a lot of the shaping after I glue them together. Absolutely.
So it's just that it's chipping out is the...
Yeah, and I'm gonna get my parting tool through there. See? And as you notice, that actually got hot. So that's, I think now I can get it, there we go. I can, the other thing, maybe I got just a little too aggressive with that.
Do you leave your tailstock up there on it?
No, as soon as I get it down, then I'll back the tailstock off. Otherwise, I could probably have even more trouble.
A little faster.
Oh, wow. Now, all you have to do is hollow this out as thin as you can get it, and I won't make it real thin, and shape it. Do that to both sides, and then glue it together. And then like Mick says, after it's glued together, you can do some final shaping. This piece of wood I brought out of the burn pile to show how that other hollowing tool worked. There's a bunch of wormholes, as you can see. And if you do these with a couple of wormholes, you can really get the wall thin because you can see how thin it is all the way down. So, you know, if you have a laser, that'll do it also, but otherwise, you just might cut through. And this is so dry here, I'll probably make this a little thicker than I normally would. Basically, all I'm doing now is like turning the bowl. I mean, just a shallow bowl.
How much do you usually leave at the edge?
I leave, just maybe an
3/16?
3/16 of an eighth, just enough for the glue. Because I'm gonna waste some of it again.
Yeah.
Once it's glued, and I finish shaping and get that very narrow out here, then the glue joint's gonna be a lot smaller. And,
If you cut down too much, then you have two pieces again.
oh yeah. The other thing about it, the first few I did, I got them very thin, and you talk about even in the deli and a meat slicer, I'll guarantee you this would cut some, that would take a finger off pretty quick, but I don't think the glove would help. Anyway, basically now I'm gonna thing to measure it with, so, you know, when it sounds really squeaky, it's getting a little thin, but But it is a little heavier, you know, but it's real light. The other thing is, that I have done is I make little hollowing tools out of screwdrivers. Once I drill the hole in the top, I can see how thin it is, see, and I can make it real thin as it starts in. But then I lose the finish, because I actually finish this. I put a sanding sealer on and finish inside just like it would be out. So when you put your finger in it, feels pretty smooth. Anyway, I can continue to do this. Okay. What I'd normally do now is I'd go ahead and sand that and finish it off, sand it, spray it with some sanding sealer, and then let it sit. And then I would go ahead and do the other half, which is this piece.
What kind of glue do you use in the
What kind of wood?
glue?
Oh, I just use carpenter's glue. I mean,
Type bond?
the tag bond. Right. And I've never had, and some of those have been around for a long time.
Do you do anything else with those two joining surfaces?
Okay, and I'll show you what I'll do. And the other thing I've done with wet wood more than dry wood, a lot of times it might be overkill, but I'll roll this around to like the 1, and I'll put a 1 on here somewhere, and that way, if the wood is moved through the drying process, you can get a little, oh, what did I do? I went clear through my, this is crazy, but I lost my lip on the back here. Don't have a shoulder left hardly, because I can clear through it. But I think we'll be all right. I've already tightened these so tight that I crushed What I'll do is I'll go ahead and do this down to, I'll get this one done, and I should have done what Mick said. I might just put just a little bit of taper on it, very slight, so that that thing comes, so you cannot see the joint. But what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and do this, and then anybody that wants to take these two pieces home and finish it, glue them together and finish it, bring it back for a show and tell someday, and then I'll go ahead and finish my other piece that I've got ready to go. Wood is very dry. This is gonna be a lot wider here, won't make any difference. This is gonna be glued because I'm too thin out here, so.
Yeah, do something to the edge, the glue.
I was gonna do that, wasn't I? For the, I'll see if I can, without that collar, I'll see what it looks like, how it fits. I think it absolutely fits pretty tight. I don't think you'll use. So what I'll do is I'll leave this here, and if somebody wants to take this home, whether you want to recheck it and sand it, finish it inside or not, don't make any difference. And then just finish outside. I'll show you how I do that. There's probably a lot of ways to do it.
How do you retruck it to finish the bottom?
I have a vacuum chuck that I use, but I'm just going to use it today as a jam, and then get it as best I could. So now, without any finish, is that an indication that it's on those type of lines?
It could be, Johnson.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, it came from Mark's. That's all I know. It was out there in his stack file. So now what am I going to do is I'm going to decide what's the top. This has a hole in it, which is good for me knowing how thin it is, for one thing. And the other thing is, put that on the bottom and make this the top. So I'll check it in.
When you glue it, you use your tailstock as a clamp to
Yeah.
hold pieces together.
Yeah, and I was surprised at the last meeting. Frankly, I was very surprised when we did that and left it like for 15 or 20 minutes. And then started turning on it again. I just figured it. I'll usually lay it aside at the end of the day, and my last thing, I'll go ahead and glue it, run it up, crank it up, and leave it sit overnight. But that glue actually sets that quickly, I guess.
It doesn't dry.
But it sets, I mean, it has that strength.
Yeah. But 30 minutes.
Yeah, see
Get
that?
the joint.
I learned a lot. I did.
And he said he does it in 20 minutes. He's there that way.
Well, I just didn't want to do that today, so I glued one up. So that's the two halves. And I did a much better job with this than I did with these two pieces because I didn't turn the collar off. That sounds awful thin, doesn't it? Scary thin? I think I'll do drill a hole through. Running scared. I don't want it.
It's no fun.
Sometimes because it's really dry, it just sounds
Does sound? Thanks for the encouragement. I love that kind of encouragement.
3-inch dogs.
And I've got all kinds of drill bits, but these seem like they work as good as any. What's going on there for sure? Well, we've got another way to do that. It's options, right, Les?
Right.
Just bore a little hole through there, and maybe use a parting tool, whatever we have to. That wasn't as thin as I thought. It's thin now. What size finger do you have, Mick? Okay. sand it a little. You can hit it with like maybe 220 or 400. How do you use this thing?
Huh?
This magnet might get in my bed when I leave.
I didn't put instructions with it.
This is one of my 2 chucks. I just got this last summer, so, or about 9 months ago, so. Up until then, I was a 1-chucker. There's not a little washer on this area there. Was there one time? Okay, what I would do if I was at home is the tail's not in there. It is.
Bob was asking about a washer. That's a washer that goes between the chuck and the lathe for anybody who is familiar. That's the chuck from binding up. Usually made out of gallon milk bottle. Or you agree?
Now, what about transportation, maybe?
Yeah.
I have the little hole here from when I had it between centers. So very important when you do the vacuum chucking, because if you just went on to here and tried to vacuum chuck and you get it, you thought it was pretty good, give it a little vacuum and then it was loosen the pressure and it was really hard to get. But if you put if you leave that little center from when you turned it between centers and put it up, give it a little pressure. And then I would have a little pressure. Now I'm just going to use this as a jam chuck. And I just made these out of PVC and put that stuff on them. They work really good. If well, that's pretty good. It's close enough. And if for a reason, a lot of times you can't get it just perfect with the vacuum chuck or even jam chucking for that matter, nobody will know. This will be the bottom. So what I'm going to do here. I don't think I can get it any better, so. You know what I did? I never tightened my tailstop. It's not good. No, it just keeps racing on me here, and I'll race it till I get through. Now here you can see just, I don't know if you can see it, the camera probably won't pick it up, but there might just be a little area right in here that you can kind of see where the seam is. But I've also used just regular glue type bond, rubbed in that hole first, fill it, kind of rub it in, take sandpaper and sand it, and it kind of works as a wood filler. But what I'll do is on the inside of this, you get your finger in there. Darn, Maggie, you can. You can get your finger in. Get yours in there. But that's all finished. I got at least 2 coats of lacquer, of sanding sealer, 2 coats of lacquer on it. So if somebody wants to take this home and finish it, dye it, color it, do whatever you want to, and clean it up. But that's all finished on the inside, and I use lacquer on the inside.
How do you keep the sanding sealer and the lacquer off of the glue surfaces, or do you?
I've done it both ways. I've done it, and then I put a piece of sandpaper down and just
Oh, okay.
sand. That does 2 things. It makes it
Flat.
cut flat, and I have put some tape on it, and I've done nothing, and it works. So it seems like it works irregardless. Well, I didn't use a lot of time on it, but anyway, that's about the long and short of it. If somebody wanted, before I clean up my mess here, for me to throw this other chuck on here and just see how it works.
Sure, we have time.
Okay, wait, it's only 20 after.
All right, I'll do that. It's
No. The card that Ron put up here from this JT turning tools, they have some really good precision equipment cast aluminum, I guess, and turn. That's what the base of the PVC part is. That's what I use for vacuum chucking. They have a very good system.
I belonged to this club for 9 months before we moved down here, 4 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Anyway, he makes that stuff. He's a kind of a guy. He does a lot of that. This piece was really wet, and I did put a line up there. I mean, it was juicy wet. I like this kind of wood just because it's got a lot of character. And who was it, Ty, that had the dental tools to dig all those wormholes out?
Yeah.
Sandblast that too. You can sandblast it.
Sand what?
if you sandblast it, get those holes.
Oh, yeah, I got a little chest sandblaster. I never thought of that. I don't know what kind of wood that is either. But basically,
What's the worm? The rest of
yeah, it's full of wormholes and it's wet. And nobody ever told me here that you're not, you know, I had to learn the hard way. I said I learned most of my stuff. So when I got a catch, I jumped and I had a few little tears in my elbow. But the guy that did this says slightly above center. Well, I do slightly above, slightly below. It doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of difference. But it's, and I don't even know what kind of a cut it is. It's more of a shearing cut, isn't it? With that,
Really right.
they're scraping.
Yes.
And it seems like it works when you first start slower better than faster. You can really get after it. Now, if someone wants to come up and do it, they can. And you can make that hole, because you can actually turn a bowl with it. You can turn a bowl. But I also have is it Kelton? Yeah. I mean, you can get some, you can get a big piece, but you can't. If you get a real big, you know, safer. And then if you move that back, then you can get around, and then you can, hopefully it's easier to get around the corners. You can just keep hooking this hole. But anyway, that's, I told David I'd bring this and show him how it works if he was interested in doing it. So, I guess we get out of school early and I'll get this cleaned up.